You're watching TVC Breakfast. Insecurity is arguably the biggest challenge confronting Nigeria at this time. No part of the country is considered safe. This prompted 15 governors of the South to converge on Asaba last week in search of solutions to the problem. They came up with a communique centered on restructuring Nigeria, and they called for the practice of true federalism, where power is decentralized. The adoption of state policing was top on the agenda. According to the governors, the current structure of the police force is incapable of meeting the security needs of Nigerians. Also, the House of Representatives and former head of state, Ibrahim Babangida, calling for the adequate funding and training of the Nigerian armed forces to enable them tackle growing insecurity. So joining me now in the studio is Victor Okhai. He is President, Directors Guild of Nigeria, and also a social commentator on this. Victor, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
Great. Now, the issues of security has been on the front burner for so many months and so many years. So many years now we've been talking about. I recall having you several times on the show where we've talked about these things in the past. But as it is, more people are coming out to talk about what needs to be done, how it can be handled, and all of that. Former President Ibrahim Babangida has said that there has to be more funding and training of personnel to be able to find security. Does that come to you as something new that government needs to take up?
Funding is an issue that's always been there. It's been a problem, and there's always been a potential. I don't know whether to say solution, because you don't throw money at problems. Money and of itself doesn't solve problems. I have always been of the view that, every war, and I mean every war, would usually end with some sort of dialogue. Some might argue that some of the dialogue has to be done with the muzzle of the gun. But more often than not, it ends on the negotiation table, depending on the strength of the combatants. If it's skewed highly in favor of one, then they think they can use the muzzle of the gun. But when it is almost evenly matched, as we have seen, let's not deceive ourselves, then the best method is usually dialogue. And it's not because you're a coward or anything, but because every time you go to war, every time you're fighting, your economy is suffering. You're being diverted from your major focus of building your economy and building your people, okay? And so the best method would be to say, okay, look, let's negotiate. It happened in the Niger Delta, where the militants were threatening the economy of this country, and the late Yaradua, God bless his soul, took the initiative of, talking to the people, the militants, and the leaders of these militants. It was dialogue. They found a way out. Till tomorrow, we still have the presidential amnesty and all of that, and the NDDC and all of this.
So some people have said it should have a time frame.
Well, that for me is not even the focus. But as long as we can get the peace in that area, then people who are talking about federal allocation can continue to talk. But if that were not there, we wouldn't even be talking about the federal allocation.
But in this case, where we're talking about Boko Haram on one hand, bandits on the other, herdsmen, whatever name
it's the same thing. I'll tell you. I'm getting to that.
You're recommending that
you're fighting on so many fronts. On
Which
so
can
many
be distracting
fronts.
Anyway.
Exactly. You can minimize the number. Okay. What is happening there right now is that we're dissipating our forces. We're dissipating our resources. We're dissipating our manpower. Okay? If there's an external aggression right now, I don't know what we can do or what we're going to do about that. If we had dealt with the Boko Haram issue, I do recall that the former president, Obasanjo, did take time out to go and initiate a dialogue. But I don't know why, for whatever reason, that was either rebuffed or it never came to a conclusive end or whatever. I don't know what happened, but that was a point. Then there was the issue of the mercenaries as well. I mean, if you know that whatever it takes, that's the language. It's like what happens with kidnapping. Sometimes you say to yourself, you may have principles. And what I say to principles is COVID has taught us the biggest lessons of our lives. If this time, 2-3 years ago, if I were to walk into a bank masked, I'll be shot before before I even cross the gate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, why would, so you can't go into a bank masked. It was unheard of. Yeah. Now, what is unheard of is for you to go into a bank without a mask. So there's a new normal. The thing is, never say never. The issue of we can't pay ransom to whatever. Yes, that's on the one hand. But for those who are affected, families who are affected, for them, what is most important is let's
have our loved one home.
Loved ones while we're negotiating or whatever. It's like I often say to people, if someone is owing you money, I want to throw this out there, no matter how much it is, if it brings a part of it, no matter your principle, collect it first while you're still saying, I not go agree, I not go agree. It helps in negotiation.
That's the Nigerian mentality.
I don't know if it's a Nigerian mentality. Most people say, no, if it's either all of the money or nothing.
Okay.
Grab what you can. And the reason I'm saying this, and this is very important, and I hope government is listening, if we had dealt with Boko Haram early enough, and it's not too late, if we had dealt with them, and I believe that there are people who can truly negotiate with them, okay? Or if it's a mercenary approach, as Governor Zulum has asked that we can use, there's no shame in it. Do it. If we deal with the Boko Haram issue, then we know that we have one less problem to deal with. Just like we have one less with the Niger Delta militants.
But recall, Victor, that there were times where negotiation has been instituted, and after negotiation, few weeks, few months, we're back to the status quo. Recall that in Zamfara State, in Katsina State, there were negotiations where some persons even came to, some headsmen or bandits or whatever, came to lay down their arms at one point or the other. But here we are. So when it comes to the issue of trust,
yes,
a lot of people feel that these guys or these people are not people you can trust when you come into the table.
It could be on both sides.
Okay.
It's important. Yes, it could be on both sides. You have to earn the trust of these bandits. I'll give you an example. I often say this, no one says no to a king, okay? Whether secretly or openly, if the president were to request for an audience with Shekau, and I use the word secretly or openly, it doesn't have to be open, okay? And that could be arranged in a visit. No, it doesn't have to be Aso Rock. It could be arranged in a visit to the Northeast, like something else, but the motive may be different. And you ask for him, and you're sincere, and you warn your people, and be true to it, that nobody, there are people who see them till tomorrow, and I do not believe that government do not know those people. Okay? There are people, the journalist, for instance, who was being hounded, what's his name again? I tend to forget. He's in Dubai now because the government was just going after him rather than using him positively.
There is also even Mama Boko Haram.
Yeah, Mama Boko Haram. If you don't hound these people, we've seen cases where, like in IT, for instance, you turn hackers into, black hackers, so it's into ethical hackers or into people who you can use for positive reasons. So you don't hound them. Use these people. Be sincere. The problem is a lack of sincerity on the part of maybe some persons in government. If we are sincere, this thing can end in the shortest time. So there's a deficit of trust on both sides. But I would say more on the side of government, because if I can trust you, and I know that if you say to me, come, let's talk, when I'm going back, you're not going to kill me, or you're not going to trail me, or you're not going to renege on your promise, I don't see why not. These people are tired of fighting, whether you know it or not. Nobody wants to live like a rabbit in a hole. Okay? There are ways to do it. Treat them with dignity. How did the FARC rebels issue end? It was still on the dialogue table. It lasted for decades. But when finally someone who understood what it takes decided, look, let's talk. It's not about pride. It's more about the people. Keep your personal prides aside. People are dying every day. This is a method we can use.
All right. Victor, there are some conspiracy theorists who have said that there are some persons whether within the government circle and all of that, who are benefiting from the status quo. And if government decides to come to say, let us negotiate, because those guys are also powerful guys who have some level or wield some level of influence on government, they may not be interested in negotiating. They rather keep the status quo this way. So, you know, monies can siphon into whatever. What do you say about that?
I was deliberately avoiding that because I wanted to bring this new perspective.
Yeah, you can avoid it. Let's get into it.
So, but it's a well-worn argument and a reasonable one at that. The truth is, wherever there's a conflict, there are people that benefit. Gun runners, for instance. I mean, if that conflict ends, arms dealers won't be in business anymore. And you know that there are arms dealers who are benefiting massively from this. Okay? That's on the one hand.
The legal and the illegal ones.
Yes. You know? And that's on the one hand. Some of them are in government because we've retrieved our military hardware from them. Okay? Then there is also the fact of people within the military who are benefiting because you see, the allocations are fatter. When you create panic, you can ask for ask for panic allowance. You can justify panic allowance. Okay, if we don't put this money here, you know, they say, is that so? So if we pump that money, yes sir, then they collect the money and the money is diverted and people can go to Dubai and buy houses and own snake farms and all of that. I don't know what that means, but you know, you understand what I'm saying. Of course. So, but on a serious note,
snake farms to crocodile farms.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So, on a very serious note, there are lots, but everything rises and falls with leadership. That's what I would say. If the commander-in-chief today determines that this must come to an end, no matter whose ox is God, I promise you it would. The reason is, you come, you say we need more, and you give a man an ultimatum. No matter what happens, the man in the military who is benefiting is only benefiting because he's in authority. Okay? He's in a position to benefit. If that position is threatened, that position means more to him than those immediate short-term gains or whatever. If he knows that he will leave that position of influence where he's able to do all these things, I can assure you that all that will stop. So the leadership, the president himself, no other person, has to say enough is enough. Give a marching order. I give you 6 months. If this doesn't end, like to the military chiefs, for instance, I'm changing you. I'm not quite sure now what the Constitution says about changing them about tenors, but I think that the president is powerful enough.
The president has
he's powerful enough to be able to do that. Yeah. Okay? He's the commander-in-chief after all. Okay? If I don't get results, and I mean measurable results, within this period, you're gone. The probationary period, okay? And so, in fact, I think that all these chiefs should have been put on acting capacity. Then you will see them doing everything possible so that they can be confirmed.
And being given KPIs where they have to deliver within time frames and all of that.
Exactly, you know? So once they know, these are the targets, these are the indices upon which we will assess you, you know, your performance, and then within this period, then they know. And then you put them on probation. Don't confirm them yet. I'm giving you this way. If you don't, I'm changing you and getting another person. I can assure you that if that were done, even the Senate approval and all that, if it were withheld, these guys would go, they will stand out on a limb to make sure that this ends. But I will repeat, everything rises and falls with leadership.
On leadership, okay, yes. Fine. Let's talk about the issue of state policing or state police that, you know, governors from one region, governors from one political party and the other, you know, the tables keep turning the other way around and all of that. State police is one thing a lot of people see as the antidote to, you know, the solutions to all of the challenges we have within states. But others have said whether you have state police, if the mentality remains the same, nothing is going to change. I'm of that school.
And I'll tell you why. We've seen abuse of power by politicians. They're human after all. At the federal level, power is more dissipated in the sense that, I mean, the president has about 36 states and the federal capital to deal with and all of that. At the local level, the governor is focused, and when I say focused, within that geographical region, if his re-election he wants, he begins to look for who his enemies are, begins to pick them, begins to go, and like we have seen in some states where perceived enemies, you just take a task force and bulldoze their buildings with armed police, and all of that. If they can even do that with the federal police, I wonder what they would do with the. But be that as it may, a vigilance unit like you would have, neighborhood vigilance units as we have them, would be very effective, because yes, in America you have state and federal police. There are crimes that are federal, there are crimes that are local. If we're able to delineate and know so what we want to ask ourselves is, if you say state police, are they going to be doing, is it going to be something like you have on the concurrent list where, okay, they'll deal with equal, whether an offense considered a federal, there will be no separation between what is a federal offense and what is a state offense. So if we're going to define it properly and say, these are the powers of the state police, are they going to be dealing with local crimes, local small crimes, misdemeanors and things like that, or are they going to be dealing with, bigger crimes that, for instance, people can run across borders and you need to, so we need to define...
And even issues like terrorism and banditry and all of that.
Terrorism is not a local... It's an
international
crime.
crime.
Yes, and it's something that's best left for the federal police, if you ask me. Okay? So what I think is, what we need is a vigilance unit. Where, like what you have, we are replicating too many, you have what you call them now, the
NSCDC.
NSCDC, thank you very much. Okay, Nigerian...
Civil Defense Corps.
Yeah, the Civil Defense Corps.
Nigerian Security and
Civil Defense Corps, thank you. Yeah. Now, what that corps is doing is exactly what the state police should be doing. What I expect the government to do is liaise with the local NSCDC, okay? Liaise with them, and empower them the same way Lagos is doing with the government. But the NSCDC is in all, we have them all over. If you empower them, you don't need to create any state police. You work with them locally. They can do the vigilance work. They can move around the community, and they have the power of arrest as well. Okay, so if we empower them, they will do the same thing. But with the issue of state police, you will just see another round of abuse of power, a duplication of functions. State governments can't even pay salaries. And then they're bringing in more people, creating more agencies. It's like what's happening at the federal level. You have the Special Fraud Unit, you have the EFCC, you have the ICPC, and you're saying, and at the same time you're complaining about an over-bloated civil service. Who does that? Every time there's a problem, it's either we're throwing money or we're creating a new agency. We need to sit down. And I think it's time government started talking to people outside government, in policy matters, so that we're able to come up with solutions that are workable, solutions that are sustainable.
All right, we have to leave it here now. You have proffered several solutions to some of these things, and I hope that those who are concerned will listen. And the ultimate, as you've said, is that everything rises and falls on leadership. Thank you very much, Victor Okhai, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.